My name is Eric Doris, and today I'm going to present my project about the IKEA effect. Have you ever wondered why the Christmas ornaments you made are front and center on the tree when nicer ones take a less prominent spot? Or maybe you've wondered why vegetables taste better when you're the one who grew them. These phenomena are all the result of the IKEA effect, which we'll be diving deeper into today. The IKEA effect is the name given to the cognitive bias observed when people place a greater value on the things that they have created, which extends beyond even the value of comparable things made by professionals. As you may have guessed, the name comes from the fact that it was first observed in people who were building IKEA furniture. The question has been what psychological processes underlie this bias. Perhaps it's the effort you put into your creation, maybe it's a mixture of that and the time you've put in, or maybe it's the fact that you've modified the thing you're making to your liking so it's particularly special to you. This has been a hot topic of research with regard to this effect. Another theory is that we are motivated to place higher value on our creations to prove our competence. Surprisingly, this hypothesis has gained a lot of traction because it has been repeatedly backed by research. If you stop and reflect on the sense of pride you have when you look at the IKEA furniture you've built, this may be more understandable. Effort, on the other hand, has not been observed to contribute greatly to this phenomenon. It's certainly a surprise that despite great effort, we don't necessarily place immense value on our creations. Consider a Lego set and don't act like you haven't built one more recently than you'd like to admit. Would it be more meaningful to you if you went to the effort of building it and then piece by piece disassembling it? Probably not. The idea that it may be based on the uniqueness of the object has also fallen flat in research. Studies have shown that even when people build things from instructions and there is no uniqueness to it, they still value it more, as would be the case if you correctly build your IKEA furniture or if you follow the instructions for a Lego set. So if it's competence that's at fault, then this would be a great way for marketing agencies to target potential customers. Imagine if a corporation could suddenly make you feel inadequate, then they could use this against you to make you buy their products and prove yourself. Imagine IKEA telling you that you don't have the guts to eat Swedish meatballs, and then you do it just to prove it to them. Or imagine if when you go to Lowe's, an employee told you that only a really strong person can build a brick fence, and before you know it, you're walking out the door with a cart full of bricks and mortar. And just like that, you've fallen prey to the IKEA effect because you are going to try to prove to everyone that you are competent. This effect seems to have an age at which it first sets in. It has been shown that it does not appear in children under 5 to 6 years old. Interestingly, this coincides with the end of Piaget's pre-operational stage, during which they are moving into the concrete operational stage where they learn to work things out in their heads. A classic example of the IKEA effect can be observed when considering someone who goes to a restaurant like Melting Pot to make their own food. What makes this experience so special? You're doing as the IKEA effect would predict because you like the food more because you made it and you are willing to pay more for that experience, as illogical as that sounds. Another example of the IKEA effect can be seen in the evolution of Betty Crocker cake mixes. When they were introduced, they didn't even require an egg, but one day it was suggested that they allow consumers to add an egg, and in doing this, the reception of the new product became much better, because now the consumers felt that they played a larger role in making the product and felt more pride in it. How about if you were painting ceramics? How likely would you be to buy a cup that is mediocrely painted? Not very likely, I'd guess, but how likely are you to buy a cup mediocrely painted by you? I bet very likely. The reason is once again the IKEA effect. Furthermore, you'd probably pay more for your cup than you would a cup painted by a real artist. Even the templates you find for Word and PowerPoint projects, these templates are provided to you to give you an enhanced feeling of creation and to boost your esteem in your project. The fact that you can edit these templates is what allows you to assume them as your own work despite having not done a large portion of the design. This is what companies like Microsoft know. The neurological basis of this has been identified as an interaction between the right caudate nucleus, which is responsible for subjective value, and the left amygdala, responsible for the beliefs involved in the IKEA effect. In fact, there was an increased functional connectivity between these areas when people were engaged in processes of creation, as you can see in Figure B. Interestingly, this effect has been observed in animals too. Animals have been shown to have a preference for the food that they have to work more for. These findings have been related to the sunk cost fallacy, in which people will invest more in something that they've already invested a lot in. In fact, the IKEA effect is thought to contribute to the sunk cost fallacy. Now that you have a better grasp of this cognitive bias, let's consider why this is relevant. Hopefully by now you can see that it has a huge impact on us as consumers, but its effects go well beyond that. It also shapes the way we interact with our family members. You are someone's creation, and as such, you yourself are likely an example of the IKEA effect, as your parents likely take great pride in you. As a blog post, I feel that this project is accessible to a world that is increasingly finding itself online. However, I think it may be a little verbose and therefore may be a bit more to read than some people may prefer. I also wish I had talked more about the neuroscience behind it, but I just wanted to make it accessible to anyone. In general, I think it is useful that blog posts like this can be expanded upon and have an open avenue for discussion, which helps to drive the topic forward and allows people to explore it more deeply. I also feel like the informal writing style allows for subject to be more relatable and creates a more genuine sense of connection between myself and my audience. A disadvantage of the blog post is that since the writing style is so informal, it may be hard to come off as informative, and it may not be written in a way everyone can agree with. I certainly think that this is a possibility with the IKEA effect because not everyone would willingly agree that the immense love parents have for their children is a good example of this cognitive bias. Overall, I hope that you found the topic both entertaining and informative. I certainly found it interesting to see how big of a role creation can play in valuation. It can be so easy to overlook these cognitive biases, but with awareness, you can make better informed decisions and not be subtly persuaded into making bad consumer choices. Thanks for listening.